Hello, I'm Doran Ellen Bell Dotan, and among the many wonderful responses that I received to my last video, what I learned from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Trump, and Musk, is a comment from a very pleasant personality who comments on a lot of my videos, and in the body of a comment he made, he goes by the screen name capital O, small x, space, capital A, capital O. He wrote, "The problem is people need to spend most of their time making a living." Please God, that is precisely what I want to address herein. His words really jumped off the screen at me because it signaled to me that the public is ready to hear what I'm about to say, and it is the reason why I have made all of the videos that I've made previous to this one, in preparation for this one, which is how to get liberated from having to do menial labor. And when I say menial labor, I don't mean just simple work. Menial labor is any labor that we do other than wanting to, and any work that we do that involves any kind of a moral compromise. In order to become liberated from that, we have to understand why people are enslaved to work. And let me be very clear about this. The wealthy and the ultra-wealthy work harder than the middle class. They work longer hours, they work harder. They are every bit as enslaved as the people whom they employ, because the work they're doing involves some kind of a moral compromise. Everyone who has been enslaved to work has some kind of a moral debt that they are paying off. They're paying it off with their physical strain, their emotional strain, their mental strain, and they're paying it off with the time of their life. And that is a very, very hard price to pay. What I would like to discuss, please God, herein is to show you the way out of that, how to shortcut your way out of that, so that you don't have to pay off your debts with your blood, sweat, and tears and precious time. To be able to invoke God's grace in forgiveness of your moral debts, so that you can be liberated from the pit. Now that pit might be an actual pit where you're mining cobalt, or it can be a pit where you're working in some kind of a top secret laboratory. That is all menial labor. So long as we are refusing to admit our moral debt, we will be forced to work, to do labor by the sweat of our brow. It is when we undertake to correct our faults, to do the moral work necessary to, insofar as we are able at any given time, to perfect our attributes and our characteristics, that we go to work for God. When we are doing God's work, that is being a being that is in a state of constant and loyal self-correction, that is influencing the entire creation, and that is the highest work that we can do. So God doesn't waste a person's time who has undertaken to do moral work with having to do other work. You go to work for God, and therefore you're liberated from the workforce. We can never be more moral than our boss if we are a salaried worker. Neither can we be more moral than the network with which we have to work, or than our suppliers if we are an independent worker but still working for our living for money. The minute that someone expresses a moral conviction that is greater than that of their boss or greater than that of their network, they are immediately fired. Now that person considers that a negative thing to have happened to them. They should be dancing. The best thing that can ever happen to us is to be fired from a job because of something moral we did or said that could no longer be tolerated by the boss, because that means we have attained a level of morality that is greater than the people who are employing us or the people who are providing for our livelihood. Now, to their mind, they might think that they're firing you or pushing you out of their club, their financial club, because you are a pest, you are a provocateur, you are a saboteur, or whatever it is. That's their way of thinking, but what is actually happening is you have been liberated to be able to find a place where you can be more moral. But when a person says to Hashem, I know that I have been enslaved because of my moral faults, and in so doing I have made myself a sacrifice. I burn my fat for someone else. I weary my flesh for someone else. I rack my nerves for someone else. I give the time of my life, the limited time of my life, to someone else because I have a moral debt to pay. I'm willing to pay off that debt and work for you. At that moment, what happens is your debts are wiped clean. You may think that you're still guilty and you will still have to put forth an effort in growing morally, but the debts that you were paying off by making yourself a sacrifice are wiped clean. This is what I'm telling you now is what is actually salvation that has been completely misunderstood, both by the Jews and by the Christians. This is salvation when you are no longer in moral debt. If I'm successful in this video, I will make the purveyors of false religion who are asking for donations and who are raking in salaries very, very angry at me. Because when you're really working for Hashem, you don't have to work at all. You don't have to work for money, which is idol worship. Anyone who needs donations, anyone whose channel needs to be monetized, anybody who's selling online courses in Kabbalah or whatever it is, they are all fakes. That's not the way their lives would work if they were really working for Hashem. I got you all angry, huh? All of you rabbis, all of you priests, all of you fakers. The sign that someone is not speaking for God in this world is that they still need to work for money. Now I realize it's very, very rare not to have to work for money. I know it's rare, and if you'll listen to me, and when I make a signal like this, I'm not signaling my Illuminati overlords, because I don't have any of them. What this means is pay very strict attention, point on point, to what I'm saying to you, because I'm trying to save you. I haven't worked since I was about 30 years old. The course of my life was designed such that I did not have to work. My last job I had, in fact, I gave up the job because I didn't even want to give up the job. I was working at a boarding school for asthmatic kids, and because of their asthma, they were losing a lot of school time, and I was working as a tutor for them. And I had had asthma as a kid, and I loved my job so much. But at that time, my husband got some work, and somebody had to be with the kids. The kids were small, and my husband's hours of work and my hours of work made it such that I was the one who was more free to be able to be with them if I quit my job. So I did, and after that, I don't work. It was right around that time that I also was going through a lot of personal moral crises that I had just gotten on the road to learning that I had to solve from within, learn the hard way, by turning to others for help when Hashem didn't want me to get help from the outside, but to find the help that I needed on the inside. Now, when we're in this world, miraculous things happen to us in a way that looks perfectly natural. So the way in which my life got designed so that I didn't have to work anymore was, first of all, by my husband getting this job that conflicted with my hours, and somebody had to watch the kids. They were really small at the time. And around that time, I was also diagnosed with, I had a form of petit mal, a kind of form of epilepsy. And I think I actually still have it, but looking back now, I understand that my brain was starting to fire differently because I was starting to learn differently. And so I was having strange neurological glitches, which I think I still get, maybe, for the learning. Because of the learning, you know, certainly I look like I'm phased out because I'm looking into something. I was given a 60% disability by the state, which allowed me, with this the little bit of work that my husband had and supplementary income because his salary was very low, and the stipend, to be able to just kind of survive. Now this is the thing, when Hashem takes us on as Hashem's employee, we have to already be at the level where we're willing to live at a basic level All of our wants are needed. All of our needs are taken care for. Some of our wants are provided for too, but it's certainly not a fancy living by any means. And we have to be prepared not to have desires for fancy stuff, because then Hashem just says, oh, well, if you want fancy stuff, then you'll have to work for that yourself. I will provide what you need and some of what you want. If that isn't enough for you, go out and work for yourself. That's the way it works. Now, the 60% disability with which I was diagnosed and given, that allowed me to get this small stipend, was perfect for me, absolutely perfect, because what could be better for someone who was then going to spend decades of their lives sitting and learning than having a 60% disability? It was perfect. I had 40% of my physical ability to be able to function not quite normally, but do the things that you have to do if you don't have a job. So you don't need all that strength. And 60% disability meant that I didn't mind sitting in a chair and just hacking away at the Torah for decades. It was perfect. And it was also during that time, my husband and I noticed something very strange. Every month, we were spending a little bit more than we were taking in, and we were very, very, very careful about giving 10 to 15% charity from what we were getting. And every month, I tracked this for years. Every month, we spent more than we got in, and we finished the month with a plus. We never went into the minus. I never had to take out a bank loan. There were a couple of times where I had to take out an interest-free loan that religious organizations run, like when I bought fill-in for my son and so forth and so on. That was like 1,000 shekels that had to go out. And but I never had to go to a bank, ever. Never. Not once. In all those years. And here and there, my mother-in-law would help. Things just looked like they were naturally falling into place, but it was actually quite miraculous that I was given ultimate time to learn. I had a live-in Hebrew expert in the Hebrew language, a live-in Hebrew editor, grammarian, living with me while I'm learning Torah. I had the 60% disability, so sitting in a chair for years is just wonderful. And that was the way my life went. And then my mother's brother passed away, and he left us a small inheritance. Up until then, we were living in government housing in an apartment, which with that money, I was able to buy. The price of the apartment was so reasonable because we had been living in public housing for years, and they have a program where if you live in public housing for a number of years, that money goes toward purchasing. And I had the money from the inheritance. I bought my apartment without a mortgage. Did you just hear what I said? I paid cash for my apartment. The amount that I paid for the apartment was about 1/10 of what the apartment became immediately worth on the open market. This is for real. And even though I bought it from the government, after 5 years I could sell it to whoever I want in the normal market. In other words, from one day to the next, my apartment, which I bought in cash, no mortgage, appreciated 1,000%. Okay. A few years later, my husband's mother passed away, and we got enough of an inheritance from her to be able to give us everything that we need for the rest of our lives. Again, living modestly. I can't go out and buy a Maserati, but then I don't want to. I have no need for such a thing. But what I do know is that I will always have what I need. This is the way our lives line up when we are really working for Hashem. And that's why I know that all of these purveyors of religion that are asking you to sign up for their courses and buy their books and pay for their channel and whatever it is that they're asking for, I know they're all a bunch of phony balonies. Because my own life is the real story about what it's like when Hashem says, okay, kid, you're working for me now. And so if you're willing to just give up whatever faults that you have and debts, moral debts that you have, and really undertake to work on yourself so that you become a moral beacon insofar as each one of us is able to light up the entire creation with that, you will not have to work for a human being for the rest of your days. God will be your boss. I'm a living proof of it. Hold on a second. I want to try to find it. I have. Here, I'm here. Somewhere here in this drawer. Ah, I found it. I found it. Look here. These are the lists that I kept. This goes back to January of 1992. You see it? Here's January of 1991. Every one of these, 1990, we kept a tally of everything that we spent every one of these months for years. It starts at 1990, it ends at 1993. We kept a tally. Oh, it starts in started in 1988. 1988 until 1993, we kept a tally of everything that we spent, and every agora that came in the house, we always paid out more that came in, and we never ever had a minus. I have never had a minus. I've never had an overdraft. I am an Israeli who has never had an overdraft. Never had a mortgage. Never had a loan to a bank. So I'm telling you how to get free. When you will really undertake to correct the errors in yourself that are making you have to pay off those debts with your own flesh and blood and time and fat, you will become God's employee of spreading moral truth in the world, moral truth in the world. And you'll be able to know that what you're doing is really real, because you will not have to ask for one red cent for what you do. I have never, ever, ever sold a Torah lesson. Not once in my life did I ever sell a single letter Torah. Today, the work that they're doing in robotics can go one way or the other. It can either enslave us to AI, or AI can take over all of the menial work that humanity does so that we can be free to sit and learn wisdom, eternal wisdom, and act morally in the world. We are being given, most people are terrified of AI, that they're going to take me over, they're going to put chips in my body, they're going to inject me with things, they're going to plug me into a computer, they're going to upload my consciousness, they're going to download my... It can go that way, but it doesn't have to. It can completely liberate all of us so that everybody can be living the way I do, without having to make money, without having to labor, to have any day, any hour of any day, morning, noon, night, whenever I want to sit down and learn Torah, I never have to say, oh, but I have to be at work, oh, but I have to do this, I have this responsibility, that. All of that falls away. And not only your job, because you don't have all of this, like, you're not tied into a network. So you don't have all kinds of obligations. The obligations fall away as well when we become Hashem's employee. And we do that when we become really, really serious about doing the work that we have to do to work on our faults. And stop blaming others, and stop looking to others to fix the world for us, and say the world that I'm seeing is a projection of my consciousness. My consciousness is a function of the moral level that I have attained. It's not good enough. I can do better morally. The gift that we are given for higher morality is a higher level of consciousness and a higher ability to project that consciousness on the world at will. The way most people are doing it, it's just it like spontaneously pours out, and they have all these chaotic situations and unpleasant situations that pouring out of them, and they don't even know that they're doing it, never mind how to do it. The salaries that we get for doing moral work is not having increased consciousness, it's being increasingly more aware of how we project realities and doing it better. But in order to get to that, Hashem needs to know, like any other employee, that we can be dependent on to do our job loyally and to the best of our ability and to the betterment of the entire enterprise, which in the case of Hashem is the entire creation. Thank you for listening.